I try to keep convincing myself, but. So let's talk about, you know, the journey of the spiritual warrior, the journey of the light worker. And has a lot to do with the change of how we see ourselves, our self-image, our personal identity. Because we often say so much, you know, we have to kill the ego. But the ego is also related to our personal identity. And personal identity is actually quite important in order to fulfill your role here at planet Earth, as we live in this, you know, physical dimension, the third dimension, or whatever you want to call it. Because eventually the role of the spiritual warrior is to bring the fifth dimension into the third dimension. And, you know, it's still quite important, you know, to have, let's say, a kind of an identity that can work within our society, right? Maybe the identity of the healer or the coach or the teacher, or, you know, whatever, the artist. So then, of course, you know, sometimes we have to make a change of how we wear and how we choose to be. That is much more in line with our true self. So then, eventually, we start to see that we are kind of like in a personal transformational process of changing our self-image. And then we are trying to convince ourselves to see ourselves in the way we want to become, right? But then we still have this internal judgment system that says, okay, so I want to feel in this way, but, right? You should, you can't, you have to, you know, fill in the blank. So let me give you 3 examples of how that may look like. And this is kind of like what I'm kind of working out myself as well. So let me give you 3 examples. I try to convince myself to create just for the joy of creating, right? So I want to be be fully present what I choose to do, without any kind of conditions or expectations. But at the moment I put it online, I feel like no one gives a shit, no one cares, and even if they do, even if they would give me the recognition or I get some sort of reward out of it, you know, these recognitions, the likes, subscribers, whatever, you know, doesn't really do that much anymore to me. And even if I see some, I don't know, affiliate commissions coming in, yeah, okay, you know, it's nice, whatever, it doesn't really inspire me. What inspired me is actually create just for the joy of creating. But, right? So that's another, you know, judgment in there. So that's kind of like another battle of that belonged to an older part of me, but now I choose to become someone different, right? That is more in line with who I really am, who I really choose to be. But we still have these influences from our old identity. The second, see my work just as a vehicle for my own personal growth. Okay, so whatever it is that you are doing, whatever your thing is, it's not really about your thing. It is merely a vehicle for your own personal growth and your self-actualization. But then we could say, you know, hey, this is a nice realization, right? But this thing should be my job, this thing should be my business, and I should be making money with that, right? And then we're going to do things from here because, you know, it has to be a business or it has to be a job. And then sometimes we lose connection with realizing, like, wait a minute, you know, whatever it is that I choose to do, that's merely a vehicle for my own personal growth. So, you know, I make my videos, I make my blog, and actually the videos that I'm creating, they are more for myself, right? They help me kind of like to archive my own inner dialogues and get out of my own head and, you know, give all my thoughts a little bit of a space, right? If you benefit from it, awesome. If you do not see any value in it, whatever, so be it. So that's how I could see it, and that's how I want to see it. But at the same time, you know, I also have these attachment from my older self that sees like, wait a minute, you know, this has to be in business. I need to make money with this. I need to get the recognition and whatever the rewards and whatever, right? So that's another judgments, right? That's another thing that the inner judge is doing to ourselves, and that can be often very, very destructive. Another example, the last example, could be like, you know what, I want to connect with others for the joy of connecting, right? For lifting each other up, to learn, to grow from each other, to recognize each other for my own personal satisfaction, right? It satisfies me if I would, you know, lift someone up. But then an older part of me, right, still has a story of, you know what, I only used to reach out to someone with a condition, with an expectation, you know, to get to a deal, to make a deal, to sell something, to get something out of it, right? And that didn't make me feel very authentic, because for me authenticity means is, you know, give without expectations, give without conditions. That's who I want to be, that's who I choose to be. But older parts of me were attached to this idea that, you know, you need to get something out of it. And that can be sometimes still work in a destructive way. So it's like every day is like a practice of developing empathy and compassion, right? So these could be one of the many stories we are telling ourselves that is kind of like a battle that might go on, right? We have this critic on our shoulder. We have the, you know, the one that really inspires us of how we choose to be, but then we have the critic, the judge. The judge is constantly like judging our ideas and who we choose to be, and it's much more attached to older parts of who we were in the past, and then we realized like, this is not who I choose to be anymore. I choose to be someone that is much more in line with who I really am and who I choose to be. But, right? So you fill in the blanks, you give me a couple of examples of some judges you give to yourself. Just leave a couple of them in the comments below, and I'm very curious, maybe we can work out things together. Jean-Paul here, hope it was helpful, and I will see you in one of my next videos. Take care for now, bye bye.